Hello everybody, welcome to another video from EGIS Associates, now part of the Davie Resource Group. So today I want to talk about ways we can link tables within ArcGIS Pro, although all the methods we'll talk about also apply to ArcMap. But with ArcPro being the newest, latest, and greatest on the block, that's where we're going to focus on. A lot of the data that is out there is obviously not in ArcGIS. It may be in other systems like an inspection or permitting system. It may be part of a CAMA or computer-aided mass appraisal system, a utility billing system, and so on. So the need to be able to tie data from these other systems, or maybe data we import from other sources, back into ArcGIS can be very, very beneficial, right? It's going to expand the amount of data we have available to us, open up the type of analysis and queries we can do, and really increase the effectiveness of our GIS. So what I want to do now is talk about some of the, we'll call them simple ways to link or join data together within ArcGIS Pro. And this, like I said, again, goes with ArcMap potentially as well. So what are some of those that are available to us? So in ArcPro, and again, like I said, same true as ArcMap, there's different ways we can do this. I think anybody that's used, whether it's ArcMap or ArcPro, know there's often more than one way to get something done, to accomplish a task. And this is true when we're talking about linking tables. So there are two basic ways that we can link tables together inside of ArcGIS Pro, and that's through the use of a join or a relate. There's also more advanced methods. The one we're going to focus on is through creating something called a relationship class. So we'll talk about that. Now, these aren't the only methods we can use. Again, we're focusing on that functionality inside of ArcGIS Pro and kind of keeping it simple. There are other ways like spatial joins can be used. You can create views in the database itself. And this is just scratching the kind of the surface. There are different ways to do that. The best one is really going to depend on what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do with the data. And I'll try to hit on some of that as we go forward. So one of the things you've got to do when you're trying to determine, do you do a join, a relate, set up a relationship class or whatnot, is you have to figure out how many records or features in one table or feature class match up to those in the other. And to do that, you've got to designate one as the parent or the primary and another as the secondary or the child. And then start looking at the records in each one of those. This is what we call cardinality. How many records in one match records in the other. And there's four types of cardinality that you can have. You can have a one-to-one. So that's where one record in the parent matches one record in the child, and only one record. So that's the simplest and easiest one to use. Another one might be a many-to-one, where you have many records in the parent matching only a single record in the child. This is often the case when we're using, say, a lookup table. So a good example of that is the one shown here in the slide where we have parcels, and each parcel is assigned what its zoning classification might be. Now, you'll have multiple parcels that may be zoned, say, residential, but there's only one residential zoning classification. So you have another table that says residential, has residential zoning, and then maybe some description of what residential zoning is. So you would be able to, each parcel, right, you'd have, let me back that up. You'd have multiple parcels of residential zoning matching to the one description of what residential zoning is. So that would be a one-to-many, a many-to-one relationship there, right? Again, kind of a lookup table, if you will. And then we'll also have a one-to-many, right? So we have one record in the parent table or feature class that matches multiple records in the child or secondary table or feature class. Okay, so a good example we see here is if I have parcels, right? Individual land lots, land ownership lots, whatever you want to call them. And then we have a table that contains all the sales records. Who has that land been sold to over time, right? So that would be a one-to-many cardinality. in there. And then of course there's also many-to-many where you could have many records in the parent matching many records in the child. So that's one of the most complex ones. So it's important to know what your cardinality is when you're making these determinations on how you're going to link your tables. This is certainly going to dictate when it's best to use a join or a relate, which is what we're about to talk to, but it'll also help control how you design a relationship class when we go to build that. So it's important that you define what this relationship is between your parent and your child. And we're talking about linking multiple things. These can be used to link a feature class to another feature class. They can be used to link a feature class to some other table. It can be used to link a table to another table, a table to a feature class. These provide a lot of flexibility in how you use your data. Once you've figured out cardinality, then you can begin to delve into how you're going to link the tables. And a lot of this depends on what you're trying to do with the data. So we're going to start with a join. So joins and relates, these only exist in the map that you're working in. So we know in ArcGIS Pro, a single project can have multiple maps. Well, I can create a join in just one of those maps. It doesn't impact any of the other maps within the project. It doesn't impact any other projects, right? This only exists in the map within the project you create. You created in. It doesn't. It's not a permanent link, as it were. Okay, so that's why it says it creates a virtual combination of the two tables, right? Nothing permanent about this. Again, only exists in the map in which you create it. It is a property of the layer, so if you do create a layer file, this join will come across with the layer file that goes with it. And you want to use a join when you have the cardinality of 1-to-1 or many-to-1. And so you can kind of see that example, and I'll demonstrate this as well, but you see the example. I've got a spatial table, so it's an attribute table associated with a feature class. In this case, it's the parcels. I have another table that contains the owners of the parcels. So the first thing I've got to do when I'm looking at that to determine cardinality, I've got to identify a key field, a field that contains common data between the two tables. So if I look at the parcels attribute table up there and look at the owner table, I can see that looking at the fields, I have an owner key in the parcels attribute table, and I have an own key in the owner table. Now you'll notice that the field names here are different. That's fine. Field names don't have to be the same. What has to be the same is the field type and the type of information or the values stored in those fields. So we can see that owner key and own key have common values. We have a 19583 in both. We have a 19585 in both, and so on. So we've identified that as the two fields that we're going to look at. Now we need to look at how do the records between those two tables match. So parcels is going to be my parent, owner is going to be my child. So I look at the first record with object ID 7, and I can see it has an owner key of 19583. And if I go down to the owner table and look at the own key field, I can also see there's only one record with 19583. So we're off to a 1-to-1. And if I continue to compare the values in the owner key to the own key, I will see that I am dealing with a 1-to-1 relationship here. So a join is going to work well for me. So when I create the join, and again, I'll demonstrate how to do that in a moment, I get a new virtual table that basically takes all the values and fields that are in the owner table and adds them to the end of the parcels table. So it treats it like it's one big single table. And then I can use any of those values, the name, the address, and so on, to label the parcels. So I could label the parcel with the owner name now. I could symbolize all the parcels based off the owners. I could label each parcel with its address. I could run a report generating address labels with this table now. All kinds of things I can do because now it's basically considering these two tables as if they're one big virtual table now. Okay, and again, this new join only exists in the map in which I created. If my project has other maps that have the parcel layer in them, this join's not going to be part of those other maps. It's only in the one map that I create. And again, I'll maybe demo that as well. So how does that differ from a relate? So a relate will link the two tables together, the parent and the child, but they remain two completely separate tables. And I'm going to do this in the situation where I have a one-to-many or a many-to-many cardinality. And the reason we do this is because we want, well, let me back that up. The reason we use this as opposed to a join is because, if I have, for example, here, I've got parcel with an object ID of 46 selected and a pin number of 002, number of spaces 001, right? And if I look down here into my non-spatial table that has all the tax values associated, has the sales data associated with it, you can see I have multiple records that match up to that parcel table. So which one would it join, right? I've got 4 or 5 possibilities there, so which joins? And this is where ArcMap and ArcPro will differ. What will happen here in ArcPro, if you do a join when you should do a relate, it's going to create duplicate records. So in this situation where I have this one parcel, if I did a join instead of a relate here, it's going to create copies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of this parcel record, and then join it to each one of these related sales records. Okay, so I get duplicate data. Okay, which means if you try to symbolize or label, you're going to have stuff on top of each other. Now, if you do this in ArcMap, if I do a join when I should do a relate, it's going to take this record and find the first record in the sales table that matches and join that, and it ignores all the other values, so you can lose data there. So ArcPro, at least you don't lose data. You end up getting a lot more records in your joined table, but then it becomes problematic if you try to use that for labeling and symbology, because things are going to be on top of each other, right? Because it's for the same feature. With an ArcMap, you actually lose data. So the relate links this table to this table. So when I select this parcel, I can find the related records and see all of the, in this case, sales that occurred with that parcel. The disadvantage to using a relate is that I cannot symbolize the parcel based on any of the data shown here in this sales table, right? So I can't symbolize parcels on sales state or sales price, right? Because it's not directly tied back in. It's just related in. So that is a weakness of the relate, okay? And an advantage of the join. If you can join, it's always best, because then you can do all these other things with that data, whereas a relate just links so you can see the associated or related information on there. Okay, still powerful. Don't want to discount the power there, but it a little bit less. So that means what happens if you do a join if you do a relate when you could do a join? Well, what that means is you'll still get, you'll be able to locate the related records. It'll just be one because a join's in a one-to-one or a many-to-one situation, so you'd always only have one. But then I can't use any of the data that would be here to symbolize the features, label the features. So we lose a lot of capability if we do a relate when we could do a join as part of best practices. The other thing with relates are like joins in that they only exist in the map in which you create them. So again, if your project has multiple maps, the relate is only in that one map within the project. It also doesn't impact any other projects you have open. And I should say the same is true with ArcMap. If you use a relate or a join, that relate or join is only in that MXD or map document file. It doesn't apply to any other map documents or MXD files that you work with there. So this just kind of reiterates what I just said, that what happens if you select the wrong method between a join and a relate, right? So if you do a join when you should do a relate, again, as I mentioned, it's going to create multiple records in the parent table for each matching record that's in the child table. So you get, you may end up getting 2, 3, 4 times the number of records in that parent table after you've done the join when you should have done a relate. If you do a relate when you should do a join in ArcPro, the records are linked, but then again, as I said, you lose all that capability to label and symbolize query data and all that based on the information that's in that related table. So you don't, get duplicates, but you do lose that capability. And then, like I said, with ArcMap, it's a little bit, it's even more critical to do the right one, because you can, if you do a join when you should do a relate, you can actually lose data. And I say lose, it doesn't physically delete them out of the table, but you just won't see them. It just finds the first one, matches it, and ignores all the others. So very important to note. So the general steps if you're going to create a join or a relate in ArcPro, and again, I'll physically demonstrate this in just a moment, but first you got to identify the key fields. What fields in the parent match the values in the child? Then determine your cardinality. Select whether you want to do a join or relate. Run the appropriate tool by either right-clicking. There is tools in Toolbox to do that. You can also get tools in the table view. So again, multiple ways to do that. And again, I'll try to show that to you here in just a moment, okay? Which is what I'm going to do now. So let's jump over into ArcPro and take a look. Okay, so we're over here in ArcPro, and I have a map. So you can see my project. I have multiple maps over here, just so you know what we're talking about with multiple maps in a single project, if you're not familiar with that. And so I have a parcel layer right here. And if I open the attribute table for it, you can see that the data associated with each parcel is pretty limited. I have a parcel ID number. I have a couple of, I have a real key and an owner key field. I have a mapped acres. I've got a reprop key. I have a picture field for hyperlinking to pictures. I've got the area in square meters. I've got the deeded acres over here, but there's no ownership information. There's no parcel value information, no sales information. There's a lot of missing information. And the reason for that is that that type of data is actually being maintained in another system. What is often referred to here, at least in the US, as a CAMA system, or computer-aided mass appraisal system. And it's completely separate from GIS. It's used by tax appraisers and assessors to determine tax values and things of that nature. But I can bring that data into my GIS. You can see I've already brought some of those. So for example, I've got an owner table, which I'll open now. And you can see that this has a lot more information. There's the first and last name of the owners. There's the address associated with the owners, and so on. So there's a lot of information in here that would be useful in doing queries, locating a parcel based off of an owner name and so forth. So I want to be able to link the parcels to the owner. So the first thing I've got to do, as we've said, is I've got to pick a common field between these two. So what I'm going to do, just to make life easier, is set it up so I can see both tables at the same time. There we go. So now I've got the owner table over here and the parcel table here. So I can start looking through. I see an owner key here and an own key there. So this field here and this field here look very similar. And I can compare it by, let's say, sorting ascending. I have a bunch with null values, which is not surprising. That happens also. We're going to go down until we start looking some. There we go. So we start finding values. I'll do the same thing over here. Sort this one ascending here. And so I start to see numbers that are similar. Let's see if we can find some matching ones in here. There's going to be a few. There's some that are not exactly matching, but see the same format. I also can go to the properties of each one of these. So let's look at the owner key first and view the fields for the owner. And I can see this own key, right? There's the name, the alias. I can see it's a double. It's a numeric field. If I come over here, select this one and do the same thing. Okay, there we go. Got the right one this time. And I see owner key here, right? It's a double, so the field types match, which is another criteria on there. Okay. So I think that own key is going to be the best one we have to make it work, right? It's the only one that really kind of has any sort of matching values, the same field types, and so on. So the next thing would be to figure out cardinality. Okay. So we can go through a couple of different ways to do that. We could go ahead and summarize each field and get a count for each value to see if there's any duplicates. We could do that. We could manually go through and compare values. We could do that. And either one of those would work. Maybe you want to do both. Depends on the number of records you have. The other thing you can do here, when you go through and say we want to do a join, for example, on this, using that value, I'm going to go ahead and simply right click up here on the parcels layer, go to joins and relates. I'm going to add a join. Okay, so this opens the add join window. So I'm going to do parcels with the owner key. Notice it automatically picked up the owner table and the own key. Okay, if that wasn't the one you wanted, you could change it. You can change the field here, but do that. The next I'm going to do, well, notice first, keep all target features. This input table would be your target. If I don't check that box, it's going to hide any records in the parcel layer that don't have a matching owner key. Now, we already know a bunch of these are null. We've already seen kind of that some of the values don't match up completely one-to-one, meaning there's not one value here that matches every value here and vice versa. But for every value here, there is one value over here. We kind of know that. So we're going to leave that checked. Otherwise, it's going to hide a bunch of parcels that we may want to see that we don't have owner information for whatever reason. Okay. So I'm going to validate the join. So it's going to run through and start checking for problems and up here tell you what's going. And it says for one-to-one, it's going to match 34,759 records. The input table has 15,000 something. The join table has this many records. That's but we're ultimately ending up with this number of matches here. So you can get an idea of what's happening with this and see that we've got a good one-to-one, right? So we can go ahead, close that, and now I'm going to click OK. And with that done, we can now start to scroll over. And you see how it's added the owner names, right, to the parcels. So I could now label the parcel with its owner name or its address or any of this other information that was in here. Okay, so that's pretty handy. Now I'd query if somebody wants to find all the parcels owned by John Smith, I could do that. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and close the owner field. So let's talk about a relate. And what I'm going to do, well, I'll do it in another thing. So I've got the sales. This is the example we used in the slide. So we'll look at it. So I'm going to open it, table. And again, kind of slide it over here. And try to figure out a match between sales. Right, so in here we have there's a real key, there's a real key, and again we would go back through. I'm not going to do that. You know how to do that now to check whether they match data types or not, which I know they do. Okay, and again I could go through and start checking the cardinality between those, right? And again, I could summarize that. I can validate it different ways. So from here, another way I can add a join or relate is in this table view. If I click here, I can go here to joins and relates, and I'm going to add a relate because I know this is a one-to-many. I know that there are a bunch of parcels in here that have sold many times over the course of its existence in the sales data here. So do a relate, parcels to real key. I'm not going to use the owner key. I'm going to use the sales. So I'm changing that. And I'm going to use the real key. Sure, I'm going to call it relate. And I know this is a one-to-many, right? I could choose one-to-one, many-to-many, but it selects the one that best works here. So, and there's a description of those. So with that, I'm going to click OK. And with that, what I can do, I'm going to pick a parcel here. So I've selected the parcel with that. Now I should be able to. Related data in sales, click it. So there's the sales record that's linked to that. This particular parcel only has one. Let's see if we can find another one. If I come down here, pick it. It only has the one. Try to see if I can find one. Has multiple sales associated with it. Let's see that one. See if it'll refresh better by doing it this way. There's one with multiple, right? So now you can see these are all the sales that went with this parcel. So now you've seen how joins and relates work within ArcGIS Pro, and hopefully now have a good understanding of the power behind these two capabilities of linking tables together, as well as when it's best to use a join and when it's best to use a relate. Now, we were going to talk about relationship classes in this video, but it's really getting kind of long, so we're going to save that for a future video and go ahead and call it an end on this one. So again, hopefully you found this video to be helpful, that you now have a better understanding of when to use a join and when to use a relate and how they work and what it takes to make those work with inside of ArcGIS Pro. You know, if we can be of any assistance to you as you or your organization tries to leverage GIS more, or really, you know, the power of place as a whole, you know, feel free to reach out to us. You know, we have a wealth of GIS related services, from enterprise design and implementation assistance to systems integration, whether you want to integrate GIS with, say, a work order, a permitting, utility billing, or whatnot. We can help you with that. If you want to create some custom applications, whether it's desktop applications with Python or C#, C++, those kind of things, .NET, that kind of stuff, we can help you there. If you want to do web applications or mobile applications, whether it's iOS or Android, we can help you with that. If you're trying to figure out how do you migrate over to ArcGIS Pro, maybe your own ArcMap still, or you're running ArcGIS Server and want to go up to ArcGIS Enterprise and Portal and those things. I'm not sure what it's going to take to do that from a technology perspective, from a staffing and training perspective, all of that. We can help you with a strategic plan or needs assessment, get you moving in that direction. Maybe you need help with a project. You need some additional expertise. We can help you with that with programmers, analysts, GIS specialists, or maybe you don't have enough need for a full-time GIS staff, but maybe just occasional help with map updates, map creation, analysis. We can do that with our Renatech services. Of course, we can also provide you with technical support, either through some sort of retainer fee or as needed basis with an hourly fee. We can also provide training. We can come on site to you, or in this day and age of COVID, we can actually do remote sessions, customized to your specific needs, specific workflows you're trying to understand or develop or get your staff up to speed on. We can certainly help you with that as well. So, you know, please feel free to reach out to us. You can get us through our website at www.egisassociates.com. Give us a call at 678-710-9710. Or email us at info@egisassociates.com. So with that, hope you've liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. If you have any other ideas, suggestions, comments, or whatever, please leave that in the comment section down below. We always love to hear from you, and we try to respond to any questions that you might have or suggestions. So please do that. Make sure to hit the bell for notifications when we publish new videos, and hopefully in 2021 we'll get better about publishing new content. As I'm sure all of you can relate, 2020 has just been a very hectic and strange year, so we haven't been able to get as much content up as frequently as we would like. So with that, guys, hope 2021 is filled with many blessings for everyone as we get started into that new year, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.